The other thing it's taught us is some of the advantages for the authorities, that place-based procurement is going to become a much more topical issue for you. Can we actually procure things in geography? And when we have a geographical arrangement in place, can we actually leave it in place for other things we want to procure for a long period of time? One of the pieces of work we've done for the James Review for the Department of Education is exactly that. Again, I won't go through them. You can see the types of advantages we got from the processes. And the very bottom one, which I think is important in local government and central government, even at my scale of operation, many other smaller councils can't get those benefits. These arrangements allow us to give even the organisation that's just doing it once every 5 years to get the same benefits as the likes of a large authority that might be spending £200 or £300 million every year. So this individual local authority gets the benefits of the very largest. And I think it's also true to say that because you're leaving all the decisions locally, you're actually procuring at a regional level. You've got a good fit with what Eric Pickles wants us to do on localism. We leave local decision making in place, and it's an interesting thought for us in local government because we work within administrative boundaries that relate to democratic structures. And it's quite a test actually for local government at the moment that democratic structure which we respect, where people live and get elected for, might be the wrong level for efficiency. Because it actually works within an administrative boundary the size of Hampshire, I can now do things much, much more cost effectively when I do them nationally, when I do them regionally, than I do them when I respect just the geography that I actually have. Interesting comment there for the industry is the private sector beginning to think like that as well. I mention this too because after this construction stuff, this one on the right-hand side is just being commissioned by Norman Baker, the Minister at the Department for Trade, for the highways and road network to be looked at the same. Again, huge spend, and very topical, particularly given the weather, the condition of the road network, and indeed the issues like salt. There's an interesting perception here about local government. There's about 200 separate specifications for blacktop, which goes on the roads, you see. Quite a lot, isn't it? 200 different specifications. There's actually only 120 or so highway authorities. So you begin to see of the complexity that we've built for ourselves, but actually the private sector makes a lot of money out of it. Why would it say to us, oh, by the way, there's a more effective procurement specification down the road in another council? It's not going to tell us that. It doesn't want to. This piece of work's very topical now for Baroness Hannam and Eric Pickles. And this is this issue, can we get the money out of the asset base? There's a Living Pathfinders in England about to be written up and given to Eric Pickles for his Christmas reading, and we're hoping they'll get approved in January, and they'll go into the national budget next March, those that get approved. And that's basically the means by which we're going to test if we can actually take huge sums of efficiency out of the current asset base. Interesting here because one of the major areas of activity that we found, the public sector works under different rules: police, fire, local government, citizens' advice, health. They all have different financial rules. And what we're saying to the Treasury is, would you remove these hurdles to allow us to do these projects? So, again, something that will prove very, very topical. It certainly won't be good for me if it doesn't work, believe you me. A point I always like to make, I have the privilege of running a very large organisation, and that sort of squiggly line is a bit about what it looks like for the last 7 or 8 years. We've sort of gone up cul-de-sacs, come down cul-de-sacs, got things right, got things wrong. And I always say at this point, who can afford sovereignty? Why don't you do what works? And who can afford originality? The piece of work that we did for place-based budgeting for the Department for Education cost us £2 million to be able to test and develop the legal models. It would be a crime if everyone else in local government attempted to spend the same £2 million. People can get very, very far up that curve very, very quickly today. I think the challenge for some of you and myself with our colleagues. If you're going to get interviewed about collaboration and how to do it from your chief executive tomorrow, I suggest you take note of this slide. Everything we ever found out, good and bad, about collaboration, we felt we put it on this. And how difficult and complex it is to collaborate with your neighbours, your other councils. People talk about shared services, drifts off the tongue. It could be done tomorrow. It's very, very difficult and complex, but the benefits are significant. You recognise some of this. Still today, notwithstanding our success, council sovereignty, is it real or imagined? Departmental sovereignty. Departments don't cooperate, never mind councils. And supply chain management and commercial acumen. What are we going to do? How are we going to get that as the world gets more complicated? And if collaborative arrangements don't exist, it's a question I would put to local government. Why? If you can get more leverage on your supply chain costs by a collaboration arrangement, why wouldn't you do it? Sovereignty? Or possibly protecting someone's jobs? I don't know. We're pretty sure now that the obstacles are no longer technical. We now can procure some of the most sophisticated services in public service without a problem. It's not a technical problem. 5 years ago, we were crap at it. Sorry, Colin, if you can use a word like that. We were technically very poor at it. We're not like that any longer. We can now do it. The challenge for us is to say, why don't we adopt that more quickly in our organisations? And the burning platform that will start next Monday will perhaps give us that renewed impetus. Can it be replicated? That's what we've got to do for Eric Pickles. How are we going to do it? We're going to follow the money. Roughly £50 billion of local government spend. The work we're going to do in local government is going to be in these 4 areas: social care, waste, corporate services and asset management. And that's what the 4 national work streams look like emerging. How best to develop procurement and efficiency in those 4 areas. Question I would put to you, I haven't got enough time to explore the answer today. What should you do? If you go down to the bottom one, we've just delivered the quick wins for the LGA, and by January we've got to deliver a big win strategy. What are we going to do to get you big wins in those 4 areas of work? That was the productivity challenge that exists in local government for the LGA. How do we get efficiency doing those 4 things? That's what we're going to try and do. And I want to just show you that. We did this for a council recently in the space of a couple of hours, who said to us, Andrew, could you tell us what we should do? Could you write it down on a piece of paper before you leave the council? And we actually did this. And we tried to make the point to them it actually wasn't rocket science. You should be quite far up that graph, because these things are all doable in organisations today. I think the last one is really important, because we sometimes get into the sophistication of procurement. I think it's quite important to ask the question, do we need to do any procurement at all? I'll give you an example. It's a terrible thing for me to say, but this year everyone who gets a Christmas card from Hampshire County Council's Chief Executive is going to get a collection of Christmas cards that I've had for the last 3 years. I'm just going to recycle the ones that are left, because I thought I'm not going to buy any new Christmas cards. And I said to my colleagues, how many people just continue to buy things because we have money in a budget? This is a challenge that the LGA is trying to now change. It's technical, and I think that's roughly where we are. It's where local government can get to without too much trouble now. I leave the question mark there about standardisation. There's some disagreement about colleagues in personal social care and the like. Can you get standardisation into things like personal social care budgets? And I think this is where that burning platform is going to take you in the next couple of years if you haven't started on that journey. You will have to share capacity, you'll have to share people, and you'll have to share skills. And that's, I think there's no way of avoiding that. How well are you going to do that? Are you going to make it as complicated as my diagram?